Desperate times call for desperate measures, and that's why it's understandable that given the current harsh economic reality that we are living now, with prices of virtually everything going up, government felt the need to take some drastic actions. Now, actions that include the president and his appointees taking a 30% salary cut. Laudable. We hear members of the Council of State have also agreed to slash their allowances by 20%. That's welcome. But not everyone welcomes suggestions of a pay cut, though. I hear some MPs have warned government not to contemplate slashing their salaries. Well, it's up to them. But I digress. Let's come back to the focus of today's editorial, which is government's far-reaching decision to wean off public universities from its payroll.
Implemented over the medium term, wean off public tertiary institutions from government payroll and provide them of a fixed amount block grant instead.
So what exactly does this mean? Some experts say this will restrict access for some at the tertiary level.
It will affect the attainment of these targets and also constrict or restrict access to tertiary education. Why? Because the universities will now have the opportunity to charge realistic fees. And when they charge realistic fees, they will end up increasing the number of students, the percentage of students who are called fee-paying.
But beyond the concern about equitable access, the beneficiaries, that's the students themselves, are predicting the fees will shoot up, so much so that affordability will become a problem for them.
A lot of people will have to drop out of school since they can't afford, yes, and it will affect us negatively.
If it's being transferred to we the students to make the full payment, it's going to cause a lot of harm.
So if he is the president, he should consider those who don't have money, but their parents are working hard to get the money for them to come to university.
Of course, many in academia believe this is long overdue and that the universities can now charge appropriate fees to run efficiently. So it may be good for the economy, but for education, not so much. Here's why. The major concern here is affordability, which is of course linked to access. On the argument that the poor but brilliant may be squeezed out of tertiary education, government is pointing to institutions like the Student Loan Trust Fund, which may offer grants to such needy students. And it also talks of providing the universities with a fixed amount of what it calls a block grant. But that's where the problem lies. The only reason we are here is because government has been irresponsible towards tertiary education. They delay in paying these subventions, which they have now decided to cut from their expenditure. The universities struggle for years without the much-needed subventions, so government is pretending that it is paying the chunk of the students' school fees, and yet they are not really paying them. So the students expect lower fees, and yet they are faced with paying more than they anticipated. You see? So the reality now is that we don't have enough money. We cannot keep up with the idealistic plan we had in the 50s when we were trying to build our human resource and the university education was free and students were even treated to free food. I know this because my father benefited from that. So the point is, even though we are made to believe that government is taking up a chunk of the cost of student fees, the reality is that the schools find means through the academic facility user fees to recoup more money from the students because government often delays in paying these subventions. And can you blame them? They need to build new facilities, labs, lecture halls, equipment, and the like. And how do they fund it? By billing the students. So what to do now? Because they are very brilliant but poor people for whom the pursuit of tertiary education opens up so much more for them and their communities. The fact of the matter is that government must be realistic and decide it is paying only for people who desperately need that help and let the rest pay. The other concern is how will this decision impact on the government's flagship free SHS program? Because what this means effectively is that it is opening up the system at the senior high school level where thousands have found their way in and restricting access at the tertiary level. So here's advice to the government by an economist who says they must hasten slowly.
So if we want to do this, then let's think through this carefully. Let's carry out a study to ascertain how it can be effectively done. If there's going to be some loan scheme or scholarship scheme to absorb those who cannot pay. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a discourse on this. Get a report. Then when we roll it out, we will not withdraw, but rather we will implement this to the